here at the scene of the crime spree, right behind
Let
you.
him do that, Strange.
Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
Did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena. And
Most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
Oh, you're not going to believe this show tonight. Seems like I say that to you all the time. So today, the latest brief was filed by the prosecutors against former Lynn Haven Mayor Margo Anderson and developer James Finch. The trial is scheduled for November 28th. And so they filed a motion, I think yesterday, to sever the trials, to separate the trials. Okay, they were originally charged with conspiracy, so they were co-defendants, sort of. And then the conspiracy charge, the big charge, got dropped. The judge threw it out for like the second time. And the government decided, the prosecutors decided they didn't want to take a third shot at it because the federal judge had already rebuked the prosecutors, saying, look, you don't get unlimited bites at the apple. Right? I'll save the rest of that story for you. But in response to this, the government's brief, the government's response has a stunning new allegation in it. Absolutely mind-blowing. So I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to show it to you. But I want to encourage you to tag, if you've got friends who are following this, tag them. Share it. You're not going to believe what I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you a little background, a little history, a little context on the trial, on the case, if it goes to trial. I've got some theories about why the prosecutors have added this new crazy allegation that we've never seen before. Nobody's ever seen this allegation before. And I have my theories on why it's included in this brief. I'll share with you my theories, and I'll separate my theories and my opinions from the facts, right? From what's really happening that you can see in the briefs. So why don't we start with the big stuff, the new stuff, and I'll get right on it right after this.
Hand caught in the cookie jar? Sometimes bad habits continue even into adulthood. I'm El Saline, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777. All right, so this news has not been reported anywhere. WMBB doesn't have it yet. You'll probably see it. I mean, they'll probably report on it. But this is the first time that you'll see this. It just happened today. And I've been working on it, trying to understand it, which is why I started a little bit later than normal. So you ready? All right. Again, please share, please tag. This is huge. All right. Let me put it all there. You go. So this is on, I wrote this. I just wrote this. Prosecutors' latest claim. James Finch set up former Lynn Haven Mayor Margo Anderson in the corruption case. He set her up. In response to defendants' motion to separate trials, prosecutors now allege that developer James Finch is the impetus behind planting evidence that led to the indictment of his lifelong friend and former Lynn Haven Mayor Margo Anderson. The defendants claim that the Bay County Sheriff's Office leaked to now deceased contractor. I believe they made that claim in the evidentiary hearing, but that's the theory of the defendants, that the Bay County Sheriff's Office leaked to now deceased contractor and target of the investigation, Derwin White, that a search warrant would be conducted on his nephew Mickey White's company, ECS. Backdated invoices were found that led to the indictment of former Mayor Anderson in 2020. James Finch was later indicted for conspiracy with Anderson to defraud the city. The two friends are facing trial, which is scheduled for November. Okay, I made a little mistake there in the writing. Their lawyers are working together as defendants maintain their innocence. Finch has even loaned his friend more than $1 million, I believe, to cover her legal expenses. So, well, let me just continue with this. The defendants say that Mayor Anderson blew the whistle to Sheriff Tommy Ford on April 1st of 2019, that ECS had overcharged the city $5 million post Hurricane Michael. The defendants say that ECS's owner, Mickey White, was being led by his uncle, Derwin White. They say that Derwin White got a tip that the search warrant on ECS would be executed and instructed his nephew to place backdated invoices implicating Mayor Anderson for illegal debris cleanup at her residence. She says that never happened, but these backdated invoices that were planted at ECS before the search warrant was executed, that's what implicated her. That's what got her indicted. At the Bay County Sheriff's Office, Major Jimmy Stanford testified at the March evidentiary hearing that Derwin White was probably upset with Mayor Anderson for blowing the whistle. So defendants, their theory is that's precisely what Derwin White's motive was, to plant the backdated invoices. But now for the first time, prosecutors say on pages 13 and 14 of their latest brief that they have evidence that Finch was the impetus for Derwin White instructing Mickey White to create the backdated invoices. What? Earlier this year, federal judge Mark Walker ordered prosecutors to provide all evidence to the defendants. They missed the deadline and continued to miss the deadline even after the evidentiary hearing. The judge rebuked prosecutors and investigators for being unprofessional, haphazard, and reckless. The defendants claim that they still don't have all the evidence to this day. Now, the new allegation by prosecutors is stunning and raises serious questions, not least of which is why would Finch want evidence planted at ECS that would lead to the indictment of his friend and later, by extension, to himself? Why would Finch want to do that? We know why Derwin White would have wanted to do that, but we don't know why Finch would have told Derwin White to plant evidence at Derwin White's nephew's business, ECS, that Margo Anderson had blew the whistle on, why would Finch do that? Judge Walker has already issued a verbal sanction to prosecutors and investigators. At the same time, he said that the court was losing patience and warned that any further substandard conduct could lead to a dismissal of the entire case. He almost dismissed the whole case already. But he said he had to issue a lower sanction than that the first time. But he said if substandard conduct by the prosecutors and investigators continue, the court would be forced to just throw the whole thing out. And it's unclear right now if another evidentiary hearing will be called regarding this new allegation and evidence that prosecutors claim to possess. All right. This is really incredible stuff. So are you sort of following this? I know that there's so much to this Lynn Haven corruption case. There was a lot of corruption in Lynn Haven, and many of the people have already pled guilty. The biggest ones being the attorney, Adam Albritton, and the city manager, Michael White. Michael White, the city manager, is not related to Derwin White, but Mickey White is the nephew of Derwin White. Okay, so understand this. And let's take a look at this story here. There's another story I want to share with you. The story I'm going to share with you is after Mickey White was arrested, but before Margo Anderson was. So let's take a look at this article before Margo Anderson was arrested. It's a news story from the News Herald. All right, let's do it this way. No. Okay. So this was on October 3rd, 2019. Debris removal paid well for ECS in Lynn Haven. Michael White was hired in July 2017 by the city of Lynn Haven to work as its city manager, taking on roles that most towns of Lynn Haven size pay 2 people to perform. 3 months later, White eliminated the job of the leisure services director, and in October, the city's governing board requested that he be allowed to hold that position too. All right, so one thing White seemed to have accomplished by doing away with the leisure services position was consolidate his own authority and eliminate any potential department head oversight of spending in areas that include park maintenance and facility upkeep. Now, White has a lot of people, including the FBI, asking questions about what extracurricular activities he may have been engaged in as a multitasking city manager. Okay, so this is before Michael White was arrested. All right, this is after former Mayor Margo Anderson blew the whistle on this. She went to Sheriff Tommy Ford on April 1st of 2019. This is October of 2019, this story. But on April 1st, she blew the whistle and said ECS had charged like $5 million. And later on, she provided documents showing this. So this is after she blew the whistle and before Michael White was arrested. One city official appeared to have grown suspicious of White by the time he resigned his positions with the city in March of this year, 2019. He stepped down after being charged with pointing a gun at his wife during a domestic dispute. During a special meeting called to accept White's resignation, Mayor Margo Anderson asked to be allowed to take over as acting city manager. She said she wanted the job so she could investigate her immediate predecessor. Quote, "This week, I believe," she said, in October of 19, "is a time that is very timely, that I make sure that Mr. White was what Mr. White was doing is what I believe he was doing. And I have to find that out," she said. That's what she told the commission in making her ultimately unsuccessful bid to be appointed. Okay, so she was not appointed city manager. In a text message exchanged Thursday, remember this is October of 2019, Mayor Anderson, the whistleblower, responded yes when people asked if she'd be allowed to find what she was looking for, if she'd been able to find what she had been looking for regarding White. She said, yes, I found it. Pressed for what those findings were, she replied, I cannot speak about any of this because it's an ongoing investigation. Federal agents swept into Lynn Haven in April. Remember, she blew the whistle April 1st of 2019 with subpoenas requesting, quote, any and all paperwork related to Michael White, everything from his personal file to emails and texts, contracts and agreements, credit card statements, payroll, invoices submitted to the city for reimbursement, and the canceled checks paying for those reimbursements. Subpoenas were also issued for documents and records relating to two businesses, Greenleaf Lawn Care and Erosion Control Specialists, ECS. That is the company owned by Mickey White, nephew of Derwin White. That's the business that was searched by the Bay County Sheriff's Office and where Derwin White had directed his nephew to plant backdated invoices that led to the indictment of former Mayor Margo Anderson. Now, today, the government claims that actually, now that Derwin White's not here, he died last year, it was actually, says the government, James Finch who had Derwin White tell Mickey White to plant the invoices at ECS because somehow Derwin White knew there was going to be a search conducted by the sheriff's office, and that search found these backdated invoices that led to the indictment of former Mayor Margo Anderson. Why would Finch want that to happen? It later led to his own indictment. And now the two of them are facing trial November 28th. So, okay. All right. So all of this that we're reading here later on led to the arrest and Mickey White, Michael White, they pled guilty. This is unbelievable. I'll show you the actual brief now. So now I'm going to show you the brief that came out today, filed today by the prosecutors that allege that it was actually James Finch who wanted this evidence planted because somehow it was leaked that the sheriff's department was going to conduct a search warrant. All right, let me show you the actual brief itself right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan can make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at PCAirrepair.com. All right, let's take a look at this just released response today by the prosecutors. All right. Can you see that? Do I need to make it bigger? I'll make it like this. Here, maybe you can see it a little bit better that way. Okay, so this was filed and available today. This is the prosecutors, and it's in this document, the government's response to defendants' motion to sever. So the defendants are now asking for separate trials, and that's all based on
the conspiracy charges, some of them being brought back, and all of the confusion and the strategy that defendants have. Okay, the government says no, we want to try everything together. And on page 12 of this document, our page, let's see, is it page 12 or is it page 13? It is page 13. At the bottom of page 13, I want you to look at the last 3 sentences, okay? There is no doubt, says the prosecutors, that defendant Finch was involved in the aftermath of Michael White's March 2019 arrest, which was, I believe that's the arrest for his domestic dispute. The search of ECS by the sheriff's office and the backdated invoices found there. Indeed, say the prosecutors, the evidence indicates that defendant Finch was the impetus for Derwin White instructing Mickey White to create the backdated invoices. That is incredible. And I mean, let's read this one more time closely. There is no doubt, say the prosecutors, no doubt that defendant Finch was involved in the aftermath of Michael White's March 2019 arrest. Involved in the aftermath. I'm not sure what they mean by that. The search of ECS, that's the key, because that's where the backdated invoices were planted by Mickey White. According to this, backdated invoices planted before a search warrant conducted by the sheriff's office that ultimately led to the indictment of the former mayor, Margo Anderson, and later, by extension, to developer James Finch. So we would have to believe a couple of things here. And look what this says. The very last line on page 13. Indeed, the evidence indicates that defendant Finch was the impetus for Derwin White instructing Mickey White to create the backdated invoices. All right, so they have evidence to show it. So, and I don't know how this works exactly, but we'll be finding out, won't we? If they have evidence that shows this new stunning allegation by the prosecutors, why doesn't the defense have it? They're supposed to have that. They've already missed the deadline. I mean, is this going to require yet another evidentiary hearing? How is Judge Walker going to respond to this? I don't think that this response is supposed to include new allegations like this. I don't think it's supposed to be in there. No one's ever heard this before. So I have a theory about why it's in there. And I'll share that theory with you in just a moment. So if I say, look, I've been losing my memory lately, I think. If I say to you, I can't remember what I was going to tell you a moment ago, make sure you write down. You were going to tell us your theory, Bernie, about why this is in there, okay? But I want to tell you something else. In order to believe that former Mayor Margo Anderson, especially, is guilty of the charges that they're bringing against her. There were 65, now they're down to 25. We have to believe two things. We have to believe that when she blew the whistle April 1st, she blew the whistle on herself. That's the first thing you have to believe. The second thing that you have to believe is that the backdated invoices that were planted in ECS, which was owned by Derwin White's nephew, the search warrant conducted by the sheriff's office, there was a leak, and Derwin White instructed his nephew to plant these backdated invoices that claimed that Mayor Margo Anderson had a bunch of work done at her home and her mother's home. But you'd have to believe that James Finch orchestrated that. Those are the two things we have to believe. That she blew the whistle on herself and that James Finch set her up. That's a lot to believe. I got to say that's a lot to believe. Now, in reading the rest of this and in reading some of WMBB's reporting, and they've been in on this with against Margo Anderson from the get-go. I think there are a lot of forces at work here, but they've been beating the drums on this the whole time, along with prosecutors and investigators. And so lately, there's been this, I mean, I think they even said it in a story. It was either the News Herald or WMBB. They're making it sound as though developer James Finch is pulling away, backing away from his lifelong friend, former Mayor Margo Anderson. And in this brief, the prosecutors are sort of saying the same thing. I don't see that. I don't think that's the case. First of all, James Finch has loaned his lifelong friend more than $1 million to defend herself. If she hadn't been arrested, in fact, some people think that it was only after James Finch was helping her pay, loaning her money to pay for the legal expenses, only after that was he indicted. Some people think it was retribution against him. So I see no evidence at all that James Finch is backing away from former Mayor Margo Anderson, or vice versa. They have stayed together, declaring their innocence. Whether it plays out that way, when all the evidence comes out, we'll find out. But I want you to know that this new narrative that's coming up, that's bubbling up from stuff like this, that it's Splitsville between the two, is not true. So remember, you got to believe two things for this case to hold up. One, she blew the whistle on herself when she went to Sheriff Tommy Ford on April 1st. And she turned over documents showing that ECS had billed $5 million, defrauded the city. And within the evidence she gave to the sheriff's office, she implicated herself as well. You got to believe that. Secondly, you got to believe that it was James Finch who set her up with the other stuff, the backdated invoices, the evidence that was retrieved after the sheriff's office did a search warrant. Wow, this is amazing stuff. All right, so my theory. I remembered my theory. Why is this in today's brief by the government? Why are they saying this? Now, everything I've told you, I believe is factual, right? It's part of this. The times, I think I've got the dates, the years right, and I don't think I've inserted my opinion yet in what I've told you. Now it's opinion time. Now it is I'm going to surmise what I think is happening. This is conjecture, but it's based on what I've been seeing. Remember that a few months ago, the defendants filed a motion to dismiss everything based on like reckless prosecution and stuff like that. And the judge was sympathetic to it. Judge Walker said that the repeated indictments that were thrown out that the misstatements to the grand jury, and there were a lot of them, that sending an FBI informant in between defendants and their attorneys in order to get information, all this type of stuff was unprofessional, reckless, and haphazard. Judge Walker reprimanded and issued that sanction, the verbal reprimand, to the prosecutors and investigators. He also at the same time said that if this substandard conduct continues, now that he's done a lesser sanction, the court, which he said is losing its patience here, delayed deadlines being missed for evidence that may be exculpatory. The prosecutors and investigators continue to miss those deadlines. Defendants say even to this day. So the judge said, you are on thin ice. No more substandard conduct. And today, the prosecutors file this new allegation that I don't think belongs in this response to the motion, to the just recently filed motion by the defendants to have separate trials. This allegation that James Finch set her up. What is the judge going to do with that? It says right there they've got evidence of it. I think that should have been turned over to the defense at this point. What is Judge Walker going to do with this? And do you remember? I remember reading it was last month when the search warrant affidavit for GAC contractors came out. And I remember seeing stuff in there thinking, I didn't hear any of this in the evidentiary hearing. Like, this seems to me, some of this stuff that I'm reading here seems to me would help the defendants. So there might even be more evidence that the prosecutors and investigators haven't turned over to the defense way after the deadlines. So now that Judge Walker has already told them, you're on thin ice, any more misconduct or any more haphazard, reckless, unprofessional conduct, this court may be forced to dismiss the entire case. Is this latest brief going to lead to another evidentiary hearing? Is this latest brief going to lead to Judge Walker issuing yet another sanction? Do you think this could lead Judge Walker to issue the ultimate sanction and throw the whole thing out? You know, in a brief last month or the month before, there was another crazy. When I say crazy, I mean, I hadn't heard it before. Kind of a throwaway insinuation where they claimed that Finch had given $10,000 that went to an elected official. In a recent brief by the prosecutors, they say that Finch gave $10,000 to an elected official in Bay County, but they didn't name the elected official. They just threw that out there. More on that when the time comes. But that was just like a throwaway line. Like, maybe it's because the government has heard that he did that. Well, can I just say, if the prosecutors know, if the Bay County Sheriff's Office knows, if the FBI knows, if the state attorney's office knows, I bet they know. If the U.S. Attorney's Office knows, I bet they know who this elected official is that got $10,000. Why is this elected official roaming free? Who is this elected official? They just threw the line in there. Just like this. This is so shocking. These throwaway innuendos. And this one sort of, I think, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but I play one in real life. I do. I've been sued twice. I've had to play lawyer in real life. Oh, I won. So, you can call me Bernie the attorney if you'd like, but I don't know this for sure, but it seems to me they've got themselves between a rock and a hard place, because this is either some innuendo that Finch set up his friend that later got him indicted and cost him more than $1 million in a loan to help her defend herself, or they actually have evidence of it that they haven't turned over. So here's my theory, and it's just a theory. I have been wrong about this kind of stuff before. When I give you my opinion, it could be wrong, okay? Conjecture here. But it's my belief. It's my belief that the government really doesn't want to go to trial, that the sheriff's office does not want to go to trial. It's my belief. They say they do. The prosecutors say they do. The FBI says they do. I just don't believe them. I do not think they want to go to trial because it will be ugly as all get out. The evidence that comes out in trial that we haven't seen here about other elected officials who got way more, and there's actual proof of it, they don't want that out. I think, my opinion, my conjecture, I think that the prosecutors are intentionally doing this stuff so that Judge Walker will throw it out, and then the sheriff's office, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, they can say, well, geez, the judge just threw it out. We didn't even get it. We didn't even get our day in court. I think they want it thrown out. I think they want to save themselves and their friends who are elected officials, that there's information that we don't have, that the defense surely has, that the prosecutors surely have, that the FBI surely has, that the sheriff's office surely has. They've got evidence of a hell of a lot of wrongdoing that rises way above this. They don't want that out. I don't think so. On one hand, I really want a trial because I want to see all the evidence of all the other elected officials. I want to see all this stuff, right? That's on one hand. That's on the selfish watchdog wanting to find information that I've been sniffing around for. But on the other hand, and on the correct hand, nobody, not Hector Solis, who I was on his butt as a city councilman, not Mike Thomas, the mayor, not any of these, not Mark Sheldon, none of them. Nobody should ever have to defend themselves against charges where there's no evidence supporting the charges. And if any of them were ever put in a position like this, I would tell you. I would say, damn, I wish they would have charged them for X, Y, and Z. There's actual evidence there. But I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of this kind of stuff. Gosh, I see all the comments, but I'm not going to have time to read them and respond to you. But I will later. That's my opinion. And it's just an opinion. And either way, I want what's right. If Mayor Anderson and James Finch are guilty, if there's evidence presented in the trial, then I want them to face those consequences. But so far, I haven't seen it. I've just seen a judge reprimand and rebuke the prosecutors and investigators And I'm seeing so much of this kind of stuff that it's just, it's inexcusable. And probably worse than that. This is unreal. I hope that you'll share this. And eventually, I guess WMBB will catch up. The News Herald, they're going to have to, I guess. I don't have to. I mean, they do what they want, right? And what they want is a good relationship with the people funding them, and that's local government and the TDC and all that. Public-private partners, you see. Not watchdogs, not news, PR. So I hope you'll share this. I hope you'll tag your friends. I hope you'll let people know about this brief and the evidence. I'll post just this a little bit later. And if you want to support my efforts to keep bringing you more, I can sure use the help. I'll do the legwork by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. Patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. That's how you can help me by, it's like a tip, as little as $5 a month. Crowdfunding is how we do this, as well as sponsors. And of course, I want to thank the Unknown Patriot for sponsoring my efforts. Wow. This is a crazy. Every time I come on, I tell you, you're not going to believe this story, but you got to admit, this is incredible. Not to be believed. Incredible. All right. I'm going to sign out of here, and I will see you soon with more stuff, just as soon as I can.